Hey everybody, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and it's a beautiful day to go see Steve Hayes, the tired old queen at the movies. Come on and join me, won't you?
Johnny! Come on!
It's the heat of the summer, and I thought I'd do one that coincided with the weather. Norman Jewison's 1967 Best Picture Oscar winner, In the Heat of the Night, with Rod Steiger, Sidney Poitier, Lee Grant, and Warren Oates. This was based on an Oscar-winning screenplay by Sterling Silliphant, and it dealt with racial strife in the South. Poitier was at the height of his career right then. He had just won the Oscar for Lilies of the Field about 3 years earlier.
He has sent me a big, strong man.
He didn't say anything to me about sending me any place. I was just passing by.
This was his big year. He did this movie, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, and one of his biggest hits, To Sir with Love, all in the same year. Poitier always said that this was his favorite film, and I can see why. It's a brilliantly written film, and it was done right when the racial tensions were most heated in the 60s.
Okay, black boy, we come here to teach you some manners.
We told you about them bad manners, boy.
It's supposed to take place in like Mississippi, Alabama, but they actually shot it in Illinois because just a few months earlier, Poitier had been in the South with Harry Belafonte, and the Ku Klux Klan had threatened their lives. And they did one sequence where they went into Tennessee to shoot a scene with the cotton fields in the background, and Poitier, while they were there, got death threats, and he slept with a gun under his pillow. Basically, the story is this. There's a murder of a businessman in a small southern town, and they're looking for suspects, and the train happens to stall out passing through this town, and Sidney Poitier happens to be on it, and he's sitting there. The police officer's deputy walks in and says, "Boy, what are you doing here?" And Poitier goes, "Well, my train just stopped." "Oh, your train just stopped."
You're gonna walk out. You're gonna plant yourself in the back. And you're gonna be a real nice, quiet boy all the way in.
We're going down to headquarters. And there they meet Chief Gillespie, who's played by Rod Steiger, who's this bigoted Southern sheriff. It's sort of like the quintessential bigoted Southern sheriff that you've seen in so many movies since.
Got a name, boy?
Virgil Tibbs.
Virgil.
Poitier says, "Why am I here? There's no reason to hold me." "We'll tell you when there's a reason to hold you now. What are you here for, boy?"
I was visiting my mother. I came in on the 12:35 from Brownsville. I was waiting to go out on the 4:05.
"Well, we just gonna hold you here, boy."
Not just what you do up there in little old Pennsylvania, earn that kind of money.
I'm a police officer.
And Poitier is instructed to investigate this murder.
You can't be serious, sir. I mean, even if I could be of some help, they wouldn't want it.
This businessman's wife comes in, who's played by Lee Grant in a marvelous little role.
"My husband is dead. Somebody in this town killed him. I want you to find out who."
So they go and they start investigating, they start interrogating subjects. And there's a very famous scene that was a shocking scene for the time, where they go and they visit this big businessman honcho in the town, played by Larry Gates. And Poitier begins to question him.
We were just trying to clarify some of the evidence. Was Mr. Colbert ever in this greenhouse, say last night about midnight?
That brought pandemonium. No black man had ever hit a white man in a movie before and got away with it.
There was a time when I could have had you shot.
Poitier insisted that this scene be included in the film. Steiger's character, which was later made, when they made this movie into a television series, was later played by Carol O'Connor with a little bit of a softer edge. Steiger's character has a wonderful arc.
Virgil, that's a funny name for a nigger boy that comes from Philadelphia. What do they call you up there?
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
All that prejudice deep inside of him, and he begins to realize that this guy, that Poitier's detective, is really on the money and really knows what he's doing.
Because you're so damn smart. You're smarter than any white man. You're just gonna stay here and show us all.
Steiger was a difficult actor to cast a lot of times. He was eccentric. He was a little bit wild on the set.
You're holding the wrong man.
What do you mean I'm holding the wrong man? I got the motive, which is money, and the body, which is dead.
He had been nominated once before for On the Waterfront.
That skunk we got you for the manager. He brought you along too fast.
And Steiger always did consistently good work, but he was tough to work with. He was difficult.
But don't you push me, boy!
Stanley Kramer had done the nice movie that year about race relations. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Hope you wouldn't think it presumptuous if I say you ought to sit down before you fall down, I mean.
He thinks you're gonna faint because he's a Negro.
The educated waspy couple whose daughter is going to marry the educated black man who's the doctor, you know. And this one was gritty. And it was up against some really stiff competition. Bonnie and Clyde was that year, which had been a revolutionary film leading into the guns and violence era that was to come with Sam Peckinpah and that whole era, the changing of movies. And The Graduate, Mike Nichols' The Graduate, which the anti-hero became the hero that year. So it was really stiff competition. And it won. Jewison lost the Oscar to Mike Nichols. And Rod Steiger won over Spencer Tracy and over Dustin Hoffman and Warren Beatty. Poitier, surprisingly enough, was not nominated for any of those films, and he was the selling point on all those films. I can't speak enough about Sidney Poitier. I think Sidney Poitier was one of the greatest actors that ever hit films.
Now listen, hear me good, Mama. Please. Don't make me have to send you to jail.
Don't you care?
There's white time in jail and there's colored time in jail. The worst kind of time you can do is colored time.
Subtle, wonderful, such dignity and just such heartfelt sensitivity in every single thing that I ever saw him do. There always has to be a groundbreaker, and boy, Sidney Poitier was it. There's a final scene, without giving too much of the plot away or who done it or what happened, where they're saying goodbye to each other. And you can just tell that these two actors really enjoyed working with each other.
You take care. You hear?
They postponed the Academy Awards for 2 days because Dr. Martin Luther King had been assassinated. And 2 days later, In the Heat of the Night, was the best picture of the year. Rod Steiger, Sidney Poitier, Lee Grant, Warren Oates, in Norman Jewison's classic, In the Heat of the Night.
Let's all go to the line.
This movie is still so relevant, especially in today's society, with racial tensions brewing and the country in such a state of flux. I don't think there could be a better time for this.
Popcorn can't be beat.